Feedback is a necessary part of growth and development. So my question to you is, do you give feedback that is positive or negative? And my other question is, which one do you want, positive or negative feedback? And why does it matter? When looking for feedback, it's important to look at who it's coming from. Think about whether the feedback is coming from people who are supportive and nurturing, people that really care about you and want to support and grow you in your professional development. This is important because this affects the value of the feedback that you receive and whether you're interested in positive or negative feedback. Typically, research tells us that people who are emerging leaders, they prefer to receive positive feedback. And this is because their self-esteem needs a lot more stroking, they're feeling a little uncertain, they're a bit unsure, and they need their self-esteem stroked. As leaders, we grow in stature, becoming experts or champions in the field that we put ourselves into. And as leaders, as we grow in stature, we start to value negative feedback more than positive feedback. And we do this because we're wanting to continue to grow, and we understand that feedback helps propel us forward. And this is because as we develop, we soon learn that the more successful that you become, the more criticism you receive. Everybody's got an opinion, and often they love to give you that negative opinion. And it's those doubters, those naysayers that provide you with negative feedback. These are the people that you kind of look for, because these are the people who can help you to grow. Because mental toughness is a skill set. Mental toughness is something that leaders need, and it takes time to develop. And negative feedback can help us to strengthen our mental toughness. Remember, feedback is a two-way conversation. So how you give feedback is just as important as the way that you receive your feedback. So the goal in most teams is to be collaborative and to develop communication that leads to high performing teams. So when you're giving feedback, the suggestion is don't wait until those performance reviews. Performance reviews in most organisations happen at either once a quarter, once every 6 months, or once a year, depending on who it is you work for. And don't wait for them to give feedback, because feedback, or effective feedback I should say, is best given when it's required, and often that's on a regular basis every week. Be specific on what you'd like your team member to do. Offer guidance or mentoring on how they can apply the feedback, particularly if we're talking about negative feedback. And you want to focus on behaviours and performance, not on personality. And, that old catch cry about the personalities aren't working well together. To be honest, I think that's bogus. I think it's really about behaviours and performance, and it's about having the conversations. And a lot of people shy away from those difficult conversations. Give feedback as soon as you notice the behaviour. So if we're talking about a negative behaviour, give it as soon as you know that it's happened, whether you see it or not. Okay, and you want to keep that, if it's negative feedback, private. If it's positive feedback, there's different viewpoints on whether to keep that private or not. If you've got an introverted person, they might prefer it to be kept private, and this might be a conversation you would have with an introverted person. If it's an extroverted person, typically, not in every case, but again, you might want to have that conversation. They actually want everybody to know that they've done something great. So they want it to be public. So really think about when to keep positive feedback, whether to keep it private or public. Negative feedback, always keep it private. Consider the context that any negative feedback is happening. Have empathy for the person. Consider their feelings, their reaction. And some people, and I'm actually one of these people, need space to react. They need to absorb something that's just happened. They need to think about it and give them some space. So if you have somebody like that in your team, give them their space. You might give them the feedback and then say to them, well, let's have a conversation tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and talk about this some more. And that will give you overnight to think about this, and then we're going to develop some strategies on how we can improve this. And we're going to do this together, because together is how we perform better. So questions to ask at a feedback meeting with a team member are things that often we aren't discussing and we should be discussing. And we want to have feedback with people. So we want to ask our team members, and I'll do this with both positive and negative feedback. We want to say, well, hey, what's been the highlight of your week? And what's been the low light of your week? So if you're a person that has a team meeting every week with each of your team, which I'm one of these people, then you want to ask these questions in your meeting. So people come prepared. And so they'll come to the meeting with their highlight as well as their low light. And this will actually help them reflect on behaviors and be okay with having a low light. They're not hiding it, because the reality is everybody in the team is reporting a low light. And what I also like to ask people to do is ask them the question of, what can I hold you accountable for this week? And again, it's another question that it's a very simple question to ask. And sometimes people are afraid to ask that question. But all of us really should be accountable with each other. And you also want to ask them about you. So do you ask the team member, do I have anything outstanding for you that I haven't done yet? So that you can be accountable to your team member as well. And then my last question that I like to ask my team in each individual team member, that is in the weekly team meeting, is, how can we step it up this week as a team? What suggestions do you have on how we can step it up? The goal of the feedback is to have open dialogue and to improve conversations and to improve and strengthen relationships with people as team members.